Hello and welcome into another edition of the Final Drive here on DMVSTREAM.COM. I'm Jeremy Huber here with you. So glad to have you along for our final episode of the season. And boy, has it been another good one. And it's another interesting one tonight. Just one game on the slate, but a few more on tap for tomorrow. Get you previewed for those games. We'll wrap up some of the action from earlier this week, last week as well. Catch up with a few of those coaches that play their games after our last episode. So it's all coming up on the show. Let's go ahead and run down the guest list today. We're following the game, the 4A championship game between Quince Orchard and Wise in Maryland. We'll get you up to date on that in just 1 second. Hoping to get one of the coaches from that game, possibly an assistant. We'll hopefully be joined by them around the 11 o'clock hour. But we'll also be joined tonight by Murray head coach Mike Engelberg, his team, the DCSA Class A champs. Friendship Collegiate head coach Mike Hunter, his team, the DCSA Class AA champs. We'll hear from the champions of Maryland's 3A, that's Damascus, their head coach Eric Wallach, winning their second straight 3A championship in Maryland. Also, we will check in with the two remaining local Virginia teams, the Stonebridge Bulldogs. We'll hear from their defensive coordinator RJ Windows, as well as their star running back Josh Brees. They face Highland Springs tomorrow in the Virginia 5A title game. That one's followed at a little after 4 by Westfield and Oscar Smith. We'll check in with Westfield head coach Kyle Simmons and Westfield quarterback Ramon Johnson tonight as well. So lots to do on the show tonight. Again, you want to get at us, got to give us some feedback, got a score we don't have, something we don't have, go ahead and send it to us. Tweet it to DMVStream, hashtag it with the final drive. Again, that's DMVStream, hashtag it with the final drive. Well, of course, the matchup ongoing right now, it's a little bit delayed due to an injury, but it's Wise taking on Quince Orchard in the 4A finals in Maryland at the Naval Academy. And this one so far, not like yesterday's very close and tight 3A championship game. Remember, of course, the 2-week break for the teams because Navy hosted last week in the American Conference Championship. This week, the game actually close for the beginning of it. And Quince Orchard had some opportunities, actually fumbled twice down in Wise territory. The Pumas had an 8-0 lead pretty early in the game and then just started to kind of add on to it. Took a 14-0 lead into the half and then really have kind of exploded a bit in the second half. They're up 35-7 early in the fourth quarter. And the injury in this one, a big one, as quarterback Doc Bonner for Quince Orchard was injured on an open field scramble, trying to make a play in the third quarter, got sandwiched between a few Wise linemen, knocked him out of the game. He was carried off the field on a stretcher. Don't know if that was necessary or precautionary, but Doc Bonner out of the game, and Quince Orchard going to have a tough time if it already are. But again, a close game early on, as really Quince Orchard kind of took it to Wise early in the game. But credit the Pumas for getting some turnovers when they needed them to keep Quince Orchard from getting a big lead in the contest. And it's worked out wonders as eventually Wise's big playability has kind of hurt Quince Orchard. First score of the game came early on for Wise as John Oliver had a touchdown run. Then Oliver ripped off a 30-yarder to make it 14-0. And eventually, Kyrie Jackson got a touchdown catch from Jabari Laws, and Laws hit Dimitri Morso to make it 28-0. Actually, a 2-point conversion made it 29. Then Quince Orchard answered with a touchdown catch from Kieran Jones, But then A.J. Litton with a big run, 72-yard touchdown catch, little stiff arm, outran everybody for the Cougars and took it in to make it 35-7. That's where we sit early in the fourth quarter in the 4A state championship game in Maryland. Wise looking for their second straight 4A state title and would be their third in 5 years. The first of that run came against Quince Orchard back in 2012. Of course, it was also on the sidelines, DeLon Parrish, the current coach of the Wise Pumas. So it would be 3 for him. Obviously, his guys hoping to get that for him tonight. Well, of course, we mentioned it before that last night we saw the Damascus Swarming Hornets win their second straight state championship under head coach Eric Wallach. Of course, they beat Franklin in a doozy of a game in that contest, a 14-12 win for Damascus. They beat Franklin. Second straight state championship for the Swarming Hornets. They avenged their title game loss to Franklin in 2014, the 28th straight win for Damascus. They do it despite running for just 39 yards. They played the game with backup quarterback John Allen Ferguson as starter. Wade Ripien sat with a freak ankle injury sustained when he was changing a tire on his car earlier this week. But, of course, the defense stepped up big, forced 8 turnovers in the contest. Colby Starheim, he had 3 interceptions, all of them key to snuff out big drives for the Franklin Indians. So big night for Damascus as they're able to go ahead and knock off Franklin, avenge their 2014 loss in the championship game and win their second straight state championship. Well, had a chance earlier today to catch up with the head coach of the Damascus Swarming Hornets, Eric Wallach. Well, Eric, there's the old line, I believe it was Rudy Tomjanovich talking about his Houston Rockets one time, saying never underestimate the heart of a champion. I feel like everything going against you guys last night, and somehow your team manages to pull out a win in a state championship game. You think that was a fitting slogan for last night's win by your Damascus team?
I really do. Yeah, it was quite a test for us, both playing a good football team in Franklin and all the other injuries and stuff like that we were battling through. It was definitely a huge test, and I was real proud of our guys for pulling it out.
Yeah, you talk about the injuries, and obviously you start right under center as your backup quarterback has to come in and play for you. And as Wade Ripien was out with an ankle injury that I believe, according to reports, was sustained while he was changing a tire on his car. You can't get much more unlucky than that. Talk about that whole situation and the performance of your backup.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty crazy. We had, our last practice on Tuesday, and he's leaving, gets a flat tire and goes to change his tire, and the jack flips out and the car kind of rolls on his ankle, and so he has like a freak injury. And so on Wednesday's practice is only, it's a short one because it's the day before the game, and John Allen, we're preparing him as to be the starter, and he gets reps throughout the regular week, but it's not very much. And it was unbelievable of him to have to start his first high school football game in the state championship, and I thought he did a tremendous job under the circumstances, and was real proud of how he did.
Yeah, and I think even in some of the articles I read, he gets the big play to Bettarelli for the touchdown, and then only had the 1 turnover, so that was big to not kind of give the game away and let your defense figure it out. And Coach, it was one thing, they kind of shut your running game down in the contest, something that really no one's been able to do all year. Your defense has to step up, and if pardon me if I'm not correct, but it seems like that was their first big-time minutes, I guess a little bit in the state semifinal, but maybe pressure situation since that opener against Quince Orchard to kind of step up like they did when they hadn't been called upon like that for a while. How proud of you are you of that unit?
I mean, extremely. And you're exactly right. It was, they haven't been tested like that the whole season. I guess you're right. Quince Orchard the first week, and that was a tough one, but and they got their backs against the wall so many times in this last game. They, there was like one drive where they were inside like the 10-yard line, like 7 plays in a row. Just because we held them, they go for a field goal, we roughed well, we didn't rough. We got blocked into the kicker and got called. But they just kept finding a way. And, there's so many times in my own mind I was like, oh, my God, I don't know if we can win this with the way we're playing. And but the defense bailed us out, no doubt.
And the big guy there last night, Colby Starheim, with 3 interceptions. Coach, you've been doing this a long time. Have you ever seen a guy put that type of performance on in a game, much less a state championship game?
No. I mean, I think he tied our school record for interceptions in a game. And for it to be on that stage was huge by him. And he's a really smart player. He's kind of been our quarterback back there all year. And it doesn't surprise me, but it was huge that he played that well.
And from what I'm gathering, is that a combo of film study and just intuition that he's making those plays?
Exactly. I think having the extra week to prepare, that we really knew them inside and out, and the defensive game plan was rock solid as far as everybody knowing what to do. And he did a good job of just seeing what he saw and making the play. So it was kind of a perfect storm for him.
Talking to Eric Wallach, head coach of the Damascus Swarming Hornets, the 3A state champs in Maryland, after their thrilling 14-12 win against Franklin last night. And of course, Coach, it's funny. I was thinking about this morning before I called you up. That team you had last year, so dominant, the way they finished things off behind Jake Funk and that his 7-touchdown performance in the state championship game. But part of me thinks, I wonder if this junior class, the junior class that was on that team last year, seniors this year, they can say to themselves, hey, man, we're able to kind of knock off Franklin, the team that we couldn't get a couple years ago. How proud was the team to kind of go back and maybe rewrite that wrong from their past?
I think they were extremely proud. You could hear it in some of the interviews after the game when I heard reporters talking to the kids, and they really seemed to want that badly and feel like they got kind of a monkey off their back. And it's always, a great feeling to beat the team that beat you. And, there's only 3 kids on that team that played in that game. But, one of them was Marcus Vincent and Mikey Bradshaw and Sean Jenkinson. They really all spoke of that a lot.
It seemed that way. And of course, Vincent had a key fumble in that game a few years ago. And again, didn't have his normal game last night, but did get the big first down to clinch the game for you guys. And Coach, what was the feeling like when you kind of looked around after that first down and you knew you guys had it won?
I mean, it's just undescribable how good that feels. And, the sense of work that everybody's put in, all season long from the end of the championship last year till now. And, the whole community of Damascus wants to win this thing so bad, and to be able to give that to them just is a great feeling.
Now, Coach, you guys move forward again. And again, I don't want to take away the glow of this one already, but I'm sure some folks will be saying, hey, can they three-peat? Can they do this? I'm not going to ask you that, but what's the secret, do you think, to go ahead and maintaining this thing at this level so you guys can compete for that again next year?
Well, we do have a lot of guys coming back. We have, the whole line is back. There's definitely a lot of young players on this team, so they certainly have the personnel to do it, and it's just a matter of putting in the hard work and staying hungry in the off season. The first day of next season is today, so it's a matter of what they do from this point till then. It's going to decide if they can do it, but they certainly have the talent, and there's a lot of tradition, a lot of pride, and it's kind of an expectation every year to get to the state championship when you go to Damascus. And I think if you ask every single kid, that's what they think every year. They're going to go to states and win it, and it's something they can do, and we'll work our tails off to do it.
Coach, we'll ask you one personal one to go ahead and wrap this up. If I remember correctly, last year was your first state title as a head coach. You'd won some as a player, as an assistant. You'd been on some squads, but never won as the head coach. How did this one feel different from maybe last year's matchup?
Well, last year it was just kind of a personal sense of accomplishment as far as just doing it as the head coach for the first time. It was just, you always wonder if you're ever going to be able to get one. And there's a lot of satisfaction in finally getting one. And it was so dominant last year, just the whole season. It was just kind of an unbelievable season. And this season was a lot more scrapping and clawing to get it. Same sense of, euphoria. And now it's just kind of like, feathers in your cap. Just feels great to do it, and you just want to keep doing it every time.
And Coach, I lied. I got to follow up on that one. Was there a sense to you as a coach where last night was a little more fun once you look back on it because you had to do a little more coaching and get your guys through that?
No. I mean, it was just a more sense of relief. I really felt like we did almost everything we could to lose that game at some points in the game. And just finally to get that win, it was just relief that we did it.
Well, win for the ages for Damascus. They beat Franklin 14-12 to win another state championship. Head coach Eric Wallach, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on another state title.
Thanks so much.
Coach Eric Wallach of the Damascus Swarming Hornets, another big state championship win for them, 14-12 last night. They beat Franklin to go ahead and claim their second straight 3A state championship in Maryland. Wise well on their way to a second straight 4A state championship in Maryland as they now lead Quince Orchard 42-7. According to reports in this one, Quince Orchard kind of drove down, fumbled the ball inside the 5, and Wise turned around. Actually went with a fake punt in the with a big lead, and then ended up for about a 50-yard bomb. Another one to Dimitri Morcel for a touchdown, kind of pouring it on right now. So the Pumas, with their coronation out at the Naval Academy, they will be your 4A state champions with a big win tonight as they're going to beat Quince Orchard in the 4A championship. Probably not the same amount that they beat Howard by last year, but still a big margin and a big win for the Wise Pumas. I'm Jeremy Huber. This is The Final Drive on DMVSTREAM.com. Coming up after this, we'll check in on tomorrow's state championship game in Virginia between Stonebridge and Highland Springs. We will hear from the defensive coordinator of the Bulldogs, RJ Windows, and their star running back, Josh Brees. Also, next segment, we will check in with the head coach of the Friendship Collegiate Knights, Mike Hunter, talk about his team's Class AA championship win over H.D. Woodson last week. It's all coming up right here on The Final Drive. Looking for some of the best barbecue in the area? Well, then come on down to Monk's. Monk's Barbecue has all your favorites: delicious pulled pork, tender, moist brisket, and dry rubbed ribs that just fall off the bone, as well as specialty items like pulled chicken, pastrami, and Kansas City burnt ends. Add in delicious sides like Monk's special baked beans, smoked Gouda mac and cheese, vinegar coleslaw, and many more, and you can't get any better. That's Monk's Barbecue in the heart of Loudoun County, online at monksq.com. That's monks and the letter Q.com. And go to their Facebook page to find out more about their live music and drinks.
DMVSTREAM.com produces live broadcasts for professional, semi-pro, and amateur sporting events, as well as colleges, universities, high schools, AAU, and youth tournaments in the Mid-Atlantic. With a client list that includes ESPN, The Washington Post, Monumental Sports Network, CBS.com, USAFootball.com, USLacrosse.org, NCAA.com, the National Federation of High School Sports, and Georgetown University, among others, Synthesis Multimedia has emerged as the Mid-Atlantic's top provider of sports multimedia. Contact us today to learn more about streaming your events live.
Are you a fan of high school sports? Does high school sports attract the type of customers you want for your business? If so, then consider advertising here on The Final Drive. The Final Drive on DMVStream.com is a weekly show dedicated to high school football in the District, Maryland, and Virginia. We update scores and talk to the movers and shakers from Friday night's top games, and we preview the big matchups from Saturday's action. So consider being a part of The Final Drive. For more information about advertising on The Final Drive, contact Jeremy Huber at jrh0001@gmail.com. That's jrh0001@gmail.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an all-new season of Top Plays here at AllMetSports.com and WashingtonPost.com. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis. Now, as we've done the past 4 seasons, we're continuing our exciting interactive high school football show that allows you, the coaches, players, parents, and fans, and others, to send in your video submissions for ranking in our Top 10 style weekly show. If you want to see your highlight in this show, well, it's as simple as tweeting your boy. I'm at BJ Koob. You got to remember to hashtag it, Ole Mets. All right, you can tweet in your Huddle, YouTube, Vimeo, really any video link by Sundays at noon, and we'll consider it for use in the upcoming episode of Top Plays. Now, you got to remember to tune in on Mondays to see if your video made our top 10 at allmetsports.com. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, BJ. That's the big boss right there. Always give me the chance to check in and do this show. Always a pleasure, of course. BJ taking your submissions for basketball season now as football season winds down. But again, make sure you send your stuff in to All Met Sports. Get on the show. It's always a good way to get a little pub and always kind of make a moment you can remember. Let your moment be seen by everybody else. Well, we mentioned it before. Stonebridge, they've got a state championship rematch tomorrow. They'll be taking on Highland Springs in the Virginia 5A final. That one down at Hampton University, a noon start for the Bulldogs. Highland Springs kind of pulled away in last year's game. Stonebridge trying to go ahead and change that around this year. Of course, last year's team, again, not a bad team for Stonebridge, kind of came on late, especially when Joe Thompson got back in the lineup after an ankle injury. We'll see what this year's team can do. Of course, being charged with holding down that Highland Springs offense will be the defensive coordinator for Stonebridge, R.J. Windows. Had a chance to catch up with him earlier in the week. This year's squad for Stonebridge, obviously you're the defensive guy, but also you have a good grasp on what this team does. How is this Stonebridge squad, do you think, different from last year's Stonebridge team that went up and faced off against Highland Springs?
Offensively, we have several guys that are big weapons on offense. Defense, we're playing really well up front. As far as the D-line goes, we're probably, I think, as good as anybody in the state. We can do a lot of different things. We've got some great corners in the secondary. We're doing much better on the special teams area, so it allows us to be versatile. Coaches, on offense, Coach Thompson's controlling the ball, which helps our defense a lot.
Now, looking at this game last year against Highland Springs, it seemed like really it was big plays that hurt you guys. They had a 60-yard pass play, a big run play early in the game. Is that the key to this one, making sure you can contain their big playability?
Yeah, I think so. Last year, obviously, they had Dortch and number 5. They both had 2 Division I scholarships to Wake Forest and Clemson. Those type of players are hard to prepare for at any point in time. We got in a situation, we missed a tackle on a big run, and we had they threw a hitch and they knocked our guy down and ran in for a touchdown. It was 13-7 going into the fourth quarter. Our goal this year obviously is to hold them to less points than that going into that situation, but they've got their quarterback's back, and we've got to keep him contained. They've got several guys who can catch the football. I don't think they have anyone quite as explosive as Dortch, which number 4 last year was tremendous. But they have a really good football team, and they've got 3 different running backs that are all second team, all region for them.
Again, you mentioned those D1 recruits not there, but again, is it accounting for their speed and getting used to it? And is that not as much of a problem because of the schedule you guys play against so many good teams? Well,
it is nice. We play, Westfield. We play a lot of Westfield, Robinson. We play in our own district, Broad Run, Briarwood, Tuscarora, some great football teams. Highland Springs is very big up front as well. So they're big up front. You got to account for that. And then, yes, they have speed. I think in a scheme, what we have to do is we have to make sure we keep people in front of us and make sure on the line of scrimmage that we can get movement so that they can't just push us off the ball.
Now, looking at this game this week, obviously you guys have been on a bit of a run since that first Broad Run game. What do you think changed for not only your defense but also for the team coming out of that last loss, where really it was kind of a close to the best one?
Yeah, I mean the Broad Run loss was a fourth down on 11, 79-yard pass. We just undercut a little bit, and they made a great play. Meach is a great football player, but I don't look at that as a terrible defensive game. We gave up 10 points. But I don't think a lot has changed from the beginning. Our kids have really rallied together and played really well. I think we're clicking on all cylinders offensively and defensively, which helps us out a lot.
Obviously, you're very close to Coach Thompson. You know what he's thinking. Going into this game, I know there's so much pressure already being a state championship game. You know, it's a repeat game. I assume it's not a lot of the, hey, we have a chance to get revenge. It's more of, hey, let's go win a state championship.
Yeah, I think there's an expectation here at Stonebridge. It's been a school, 15 or 16 years, and Coach has had them in the state finals 8 times. So I don't think there's a ton of pressure. We just want to go out and play our best football game. But as far as our kids, I think they all expect to be in a state championship. And that's what makes this place special. We build relationships with kids, and Coach, he makes it a point to every kid on this football team is important, and we treat them that way. And every football game we play is important, and we try to treat them that way. So, sure, a lot of people would say, oh, I'd love to have the opportunity. We want to go win it.
Most definitely. And one last one, since we have you, obviously, he's been doing this a long time. He's a really good coach. I mean, I played against his teams. They were always very well coached, very strong. He was kind of at the forefront of the weightlifting phenomenon in Loudoun County. What's it like coaching on a Mickey Thompson team?
It's great. I mean, he is a humble man. He makes it. He makes his coaches all coach. He expects you to do your job. He doesn't micromanage anybody. He gets out, rolls his sleeves up, and he expects you to do the exact same thing.
Well, good luck this weekend. Hope you bring one back to Loudoun.
Thanks. That's the plan.
RJ Windows, the defensive coordinator for Stonebridge, of course, formerly a head coach at Washington Lee. Of course, one of the guys that makes this Stonebridge team go, one of their many talented running backs, Josh Brees, had a chance to catch up with him earlier in the week. Coach Thompson's been around for so long, and he's been such a good coach. What's it like playing for Coach Thompson?
It's really something special because you understand that the history behind the school, behind this program, behind the guys who have come through here, all the amazing athletes have been here. You feel like you have to step up every year and just fill those spots.
And Josh, this style of offense, and I remember when Coach put it in, actually went to the single wing, and you guys have added so many layers to it. It's not just the traditional, hey, we're going to just run the ball. You guys throw out of it as well. How do you personally prepare to play in an offense like this?
You just have to be adaptable and be very open-minded and just completely forget what you learned in the past and just play the Mickey way.
It's a good way to put it. Now, I think I was reading an article about you, a little bit profiling you, and said that it took you a while to kind of grasp what this offense was all about. How long did it take for you to kind of get comfortable playing in the single wing?
Probably about 4 or 5 games until my junior year. We play in Westfield. We were down, but then I realized when Joe Thompson went down, Coach's son, that's when I realized I needed to step up, and I did all the extra things. I couldn't just ride on his coattail for the rest of the season. So that's when things started to click, and I blossomed a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a bit of an understatement. You're kind of the main guy in this thing, but you have a lot of help. And you look at Bradley Block and Josh Lawyer and Leland Gertie. How important is it in your estimation to be able to have that many weapons that can do things in this offense?
We're just really hard to stop because we all run with different styles, different personalities, and it's just too many different things for defense to scheme for. And that's what makes us multiple, and let's make Coach Thompson a great coach. He knows how to use all of us, and we play off each other real well. We complement each other.
What do you feel like your strength is in this offense?
My speed and my home run ability. If I get to the next level, there's not many people who can catch me out there. So
that's a bit of an understatement. Now, of course, any good running back's got a good offensive line, and Coach Thompson, like I said, as long as I've known him as a coach, he's had good offensive lines. What's their biggest strength?
They're very smart, very intelligent men. They all understand their schemes. Brian's one of the best centers I could ask for. He puts the ball in a perfect spot every single time. Dylan and Aaron, they go out, bait their traps, and they're physically dominate, even though they're smaller guys, but it doesn't matter. They're hard work in the weight room, and I just trust those guys with my life.
Looking at the opponent this week, it's Highland Springs against the state championship again. I can ask you too in depth on that. I won't you giving away any secrets, but do you and your teammates kind of realize the opportunity that you have, not only going back to a state championship game, but getting a chance to play against the team that beat you last year?
Oh yeah, it's kind of, I'm not gonna say the same thing, but it was kind of similar to how us and Phoebus were in the back in the day, and how like we just two top schools just come battle it out, and it's gonna be another classic. I feel like.
We hope so as well. Hope you guys come out on top. Now, I want to talk a little personally about you. Looking up, doing some research, some Ivy League schools, had some interest there. How are things going in that regard? Are there any schools that maybe you think it might be a place that you could be in 2017 playing football?
Hopefully my number one, Princeton. I've been up there 2-3 times, so I'm looking real good about there, and I just want to get the best education possible. That's one of the things that are important to me, so hopefully I'm there.
That's a good place. And, of course, coming out of Loudoun County Public Schools, you always seem to be ready for that type of track. The other thing I want to ask you about was from a little research that you grew up in a bit of a military family, your mom in the military. What has that been able to kind of impart to you growing up and maybe in a sport like football where there's a lot of discipline involved? Did it help you kind of growing up that way, getting out on the gridiron and be able to do some good things?
Yeah, absolutely. All that has made me very disciplined. The yes sir, no, yes ma'am, no ma'am. All that plays a part of football because I'm very coachable. I can bend any direction for the coach. Wherever he needs me, I can do it. I get the job done any way possible because I'm a soldier.
I'll tell you what, you're wearing a bow tie today. You're looking really good, and I hope you look good on Saturday. Again, Josh, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Josh Brees, the standout running back for the Stonebridge Bulldogs, as they take on Highland Springs in the Virginia 5A finals tomorrow, a noon start. Well, just the final in just moments ago in the Maryland 4A championship. Wise a 42-7 win over Quince Orchard. They are your 4A state champions. Congratulations to DeLon Parrish. His guys going back-to-back just like Damascus, and who knows, maybe the questions are going to continue should the Pumas and the Swarman Hornets face off. I know last year Coach Parrish was all about it. We'll see if they could get something like that done. I'm sure it would draw a very big crowd for that matchup if those two teams were to hook up on the football field. Well, of course, a team already with a state championship in their back pocket in D.C., the Friendship Collegiate Knights, they knocked off H.D. Woodson last week. 13-0 last Saturday, really got after it on the defensive end. Of course, a little bit of a brawl at the end of the game, marred things, but again, you couldn't really obscure how well that Friendship defense played as they were able to shut down H.D. Woodson and win their first DCSAA title since the inaugural one, which they beat Woodson in back in 2012. So big day for the Friendship Collegiate Knights. Had a chance to catch up with their head coach, Mike Hunter, earlier this week to talk about his team's very, very big win. Well, Coach Hunter, obviously a fantastic win for you guys in the DCSA championship game. You shut out Woodson in the contest, but wanted to start off in that game. Your offense, even though it didn't do all that much, it did give you a real good start to the game. A touchdown catch run by Dante Demas. How important was it for you guys to put the Warriors in catch-up mode in that game?
Well, we knew we wanted to jump out on them early. Offensively, we saw some things on film that we could kind of take advantage of. So we were able to do that early, on the first drive. And we knew once we get a lead on most teams with the way our defense and special teams are playing, that it puts us in position to be successful.
And most definitely it did. And that defense, maybe their best performance of the year, all things considered. You shut out a really good team. Where did that defensive performance come from?
It comes from the players and the coaches. They do a really good job of, paying attention to details, paying attention to the little things, film study, really working hard in the off season. We had a bunch of older guys who have been playing for 2 or 3 years, so they were comfortable with what we were doing. And, they just wanted to put the team on their back. And, again, all we had to do was get a couple of touchdowns in most of our games, and we knew we would be in good shape to come away with victories.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about that leadership, and Vaughn Taylor, defensive end, he was named the MVP of the game. And it's funny in Mark Giannato's story in the Post, he had a quote in there, I think just some sideline chatter, but Vaughn saying, they ain't going to score on us after Demas scored the touchdown. Talk about his performance both on the field as a player and leading that defense on that day.
Vaughn's a heck of a kid. He's a great student in the classroom. He's a role model in the school. He's not a kid that gets in trouble. So he's the kind of kid that we want here at Friendship, that we build our programs around. And he's a guy that's the first one in, to workouts, to practice. He stays after if he has to. He's going to do everything you ask him to do. And I couldn't be happier for Vaughn, with the season he's had and, his future that he has moving forward.
And in something like that, was that at all out of character on the sidelines to kind of make a proclamation like that everybody follows?
No, it's not. It's not out of character. Our whole defense thinks like that. That people are not going to score touchdowns on us. I know we had a few hiccups this year, but for the most part, they had it set in their mind that teams were not going to score points on us. And even some of the teams that did, whether it's one touchdown or two touchdowns, they can all look at the film and say, hey, if we would have done this differently, then, we wouldn't have gave up any points. So, that shows a lot of maturity on their part.
Coach, it's your first win in the DCSA title game since the inaugural one in 2012. And, we've talked before in the fact that, you guys and like really everybody else in the tournament, they have conference championships. They have other things to play for. This is your main thing. How important was it for you guys to go ahead and get this title this year?
It was important for us, just in the sense that, it was something that our kids really worked for. And us not having a conference championship, this was kind of the game that you look forward to, that you wanted to go out on top. And, our kids, they've worked hard since January to get to this point, and, they just weren't going to be denied.
Most definitely. Talking to Mike Hunter, head coach of the Friendship Collegiate Knights, the DCSA AA state champ after their win over HD Woodson. Coach, you had a little interesting thing in the schedule this year. You had a double bye after your win over Gilman leading into your matchup with Silver Oak. And really, Coach, it seemed like after that bye, you guys came out like a house of fire. What was the reasoning behind it, and did it work to what you were expecting coming out of that little rest in the middle of the season?
Well, it wasn't intended to be a double bye. What we did was we took, two teams that we were scheduled to play earlier in the season that they also, are independent teams in National Christian and Silver Oak. And, I asked those coaches, can we potentially move the game back, to later November so that we wouldn't be sitting around so long waiting for the DCSAA playoffs. Unfortunately, Eastern Christian dropped their program, so that's what caused the double bye. It was really just supposed to be a 1 week bye, but it did help us get healthy. And I would say the biggest thing that turned our season around was when we went up to St. Joe's Regional in New Jersey. They jumped out on us pretty good, and the guys at halftime, they got together, and it was just like, look, we're not playing friendship football. Let's forget what the scoreboard says. Let's just go out, and these boys will know what friendship football is all about at the end of the game. And from the second half of that game until the end of the season, I believe we only gave up 9 points to an opponent. And our offense was able to get clicking as well.
Yeah, and obviously some of the scores you put up, 50-plus points in some of those games, good performances there. You mentioned the two losses this year. Both came to out-of-town competition, both Jersey schools, I believe. Is there a nice thing, kind of a special feeling that you guys were able to go undefeated against the locals this year?
Yeah, I mean, it feels good. Obviously we wanted those two games, and, the teams we lost to are really good programs. St. Joe's Regional just won their district or state championship up in New Jersey for their classification. And the Hun School is a prep school, and they finished the season 9-0, I believe, this year. So, just for us to get on the field and compete with two teams of that caliber, it prepares us for when we play teams locally. And that's what we always try to tell our kids. Like, we play these games for a reason. And also the college recruiters know the other schools that we're playing against. So, they respect what we do. And it's just, it prepares our kids for teams like HD Woodson, for, Carroll and so forth and so on.
Coach, one last one for you. In reading up on your school, it's such a special school, and basically it's about getting kids into college and getting them through, and sports is kind of a vehicle to that end, getting kids opportunities. So maybe a little bit different focus than some other schools. In that vein, what is the next step for the Friendship football program? What are you guys looking to in the future as you keep building this thing up?
Just to continue with that model, like I said, and like you read up, the reason we have athletics here is strictly just to, be a vehicle to help kids pay for college and graduate with college degrees. And that's it. The championships are nice, and, the trophies, they sit somewhere in the trophy case around here. But, after Monday, when, the principal came down and congratulated the kids, we're moving on to 2017, trying to get the 2017 class into schools. So, that's our real championship day is signing day. We make a pretty big deal about it here because we want to celebrate our kids.
Well, there could be a lot of celebrations at Friendship for stuff on the field and off of it. You got a big hand of that, Coach Hunter. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Mike Hunter, head coach of the Friendship Collegiate Knights. Thank you so much for joining us on the show, and congratulations on the great year.
Thanks a lot.
Mike Hunter, head coach of the Friendship Collegiate Knights. Again, a DCSA AA championship for them as they beat HD Woodson. A really good season for the Knights as they really got after it under head coach Mike Hunter. Well, coming up, got some more coaches we will hear from. Of course, we will check in with the Westfield Bulldogs, their head coach, Kyle Simmons, as well as their quarterback, Ramon Johnson. Also open to hear from the Wise Pumas, one of their coaches, talking about tonight's big win in the 4A Maryland State Championship game. But coming up next, part one of my interview with the head coach of the Murray Frogs, Mike Engelberg, talking about his team's big win over Theodore Roosevelt this year, in the Class A championship game in the DCSA, as well as the great season that the Frogs had. Again, Mike Engelberg coming up next here on the Final Drive. Remember, want to get in touch with us, easy to do. Do it by tweeting DMVStream, hashtag it The Final Drive. Again, that's DMVStream, hashtag it with The Final Drive. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for some of the best barbecue in the area? Well, then come on down to Monk's. Monk's Barbecue has all your favorites: delicious pulled pork, tender, moist brisket, and dry rubbed ribs that just fall off the bone, as well as specialty items like pulled chicken, pastrami, and Kansas City burnt ends. Add in delicious sides like Monk's special baked beans, smoked Gouda mac and cheese, vinegar coleslaw, and many more, and you can't get any better. That's Monk's Barbecue in the heart of Loudoun County, online at monksq.com. That's monks and the letter Q.com. And go to their Facebook page to find out more about their live music and drinks. DMVSTREAM.com produces live broadcasts for professional, semi-pro, and amateur sporting events, as well as colleges, universities, high schools, AAU, and youth tournaments in the Mid-Atlantic. With a client list that includes ESPN, The Washington Post, Monumental Sports Network, CBS.com, USAFootball.com, USLacrosse.org, NCAA.com, the National Federation of High School Sports, and Georgetown University, among others, Synthesis Multimedia has emerged as the Mid-Atlantic's top provider of sports multimedia. Contact us today to learn more about streaming your events live. Are you a fan of high school sports? Does high school sports attract the type of customers you want for your business? If so, then consider advertising here on The Final Drive. The Final Drive on DMVStream.com is a weekly show dedicated to high school football in the District, Maryland, and Virginia. We update scores and talk to the movers and shakers from Friday night's top games, and we preview the big matchups from Saturday's action. So consider being a part of The Final Drive. For more information about advertising on The Final Drive, contact Jeremy Huber at jrh0001@gmail.com. That's jrh0001@gmail.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an all-new season of Top Plays here at allmetsports.com and WashingtonPost.com. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis. Now, as we've done the past 4 seasons, we're continuing our exciting interactive high school football show that allows you, the coaches, players, parents, and fans, and others, to send in your video submissions for ranking in our Top 10 Style Weekly show. If you want to see your highlight in this show, well, it's as simple as tweeting your boy. I'm at BJ Coop. You got to remember to hashtag it, Ole Mets. All right, you can tweet in your Huddle, YouTube, Vimeo, really any video link by Sundays at noon, and we'll consider it for use in the upcoming episode of Top Plays. Now, you got to remember to tune in on Mondays to see if your video made our top 10 at allmetsports.com. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back into the final drive here on DMVSTREAM.com. I'm your host, Jeremy Huber. Lots to get to on the show tonight. Already heard from plenty of coaches. We'll hear from some more. Remember, we'll check in with the Westfield Bulldogs ahead of their big matchup tomorrow in the 6A Virginia final against Oscar Smith, a 4:30 start down at Hampton University. But right now, we're going to hear from the head coach of the Murray Frogs, Mike Engelberg. Of course, his team was a fantastic season, a historic one for Murray as they win their first MAC championship, then win their first DCSAA championship with a big win over Theodore Roosevelt in that championship game a few weeks back. Had a chance to catch up with Coach Engelberg to talk about his team and their big season. Well, Coach Engelberg, obviously a historic season at Murray this year. You know, you guys go undefeated, you win your conference title, you end up winning a state title as well. I guess the first question is, let's start with the undefeated season. What was the feeling that you guys were able to do something that special this year?
I mean, just unbelievable. I mean, really, you have to understand kind of the whole picture of just Murray football in general to see how just amazing of an accomplishment it was for us. You know, we're a small school. We have 140 boys in our entire high school, fielding a boys soccer team and a cross-country team and a JV boys soccer team. You know, so, you know, it's a small school with limited resources in terms of numbers. So for us to kind of put it all together and go undefeated is just absolutely just euphoric. I mean, it's the top of the world for us. You know, it's never anything that we set out to do. It wasn't a goal. You know, we're very much into, and I'm sure every coach will say this, but we live it. You know, you take it 1 week at a time and put together the best effort you can that week, and then great, move on to the next week. And, you know, that's a byproduct of kind of 4 years ago. We had 17 guys on our team total in our high school program. And, you know, we really learned let's just go week to week and get to next week's game. All right, we did it. Now we'll play the next game. And that's when these guys, our seniors, were freshmen, and it's just carried on year after year, that approach of, hey, let's play the best we can this week, because that's all we really can control is this week. And then that's our mentality. And this year, you added them all up at the end of the year, and man, it was 12-0. We'll take it.
Pretty impressive story. And I want to kind of go in that vein for a second. As I was doing some research on you guys, I found that you kind of helped institute a little bit of a flag program in your middle school to bulk your numbers up a little bit. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, it was with this year's Murray is a kindergarten through 12 school, 650 kids or so, K through 12, and it's co-ed. So, you know, you got half boys, half girls. So we were finding, or at least I was finding, that my numbers were going down year after year. And that kind of corresponded with just the negative press football was getting. I mean, football as a whole was just getting hammered week after week in the New York Times and in just everywhere you looked. I mean, there was something else negative about football coming out. So I went to Liz Hall, who was our athletic director, and said, I know this is crazy, but what about trying to do flag football in 7th grade and 8th grade for, you know, 80% of the middle school season? And let's see if we can get these numbers up, you know, and really get away from worrying about playing games in middle school and teach the fundamentals of football and how to tackle and fundamentals of how to play and how to really learn your position. And so we did it, and that was, like I said, that was when this year's freshmen were 7th graders, and we had our highest middle school numbers in years. And then what we did was kind of 3 weeks before the season ended, so 3 months into it, we said, all right, anybody interested in putting the pads on and taking everything we've learned and doing it with pads, come out on Wednesday. And we had about 20 kids come out, which was awesome. So those guys came out. We just did the same drills we've been doing all year, but with pads on. And then we ended it with one scrimmage against another school, and that was it. And then the next year, that 7th grade class came back with like 19 of them, and they were just as excited about it. And we kind of went with a half year of flag and then a half year of tackle, half season. And it stayed. And then this year I've got 14 freshmen, and 12 of them are kids that have been in Murray through middle school and stuck through it. So I really think it helped us twofold. One, it helped us because our kids are just fundamentally really strong. We got away from teaching the physicality of football and more into the actual technique. And, I'm not claiming to be some rocket scientist or something, but we had 0 concussions this year in our high school program, literally 0. And, I think a lot of that goes back to we got away from the physicality of practice and focused on the technique. Like, we never go full pads in practice. We didn't go full pads one time the entire season in practice. And we don't hit live. We don't bring guys to the ground. We really focus on the technique and the fundamentals.
That's a pretty cool story, Coach, especially when you talk about the future of football, you guys getting some good results like that. And I guess this kind of plays into it as well. Talking to some other coaches, had a chance to talk to Coach Simon from Sidwell last year after their run to the championship. And he kind of talked about the differences coaching in a place like Sidwell Friends. I'm sure a lot of those things are kind of in your vein when you coach over Murray. How tough is it to coach at a place like Murray where those academics are high and the numbers can be low?
I think it's not tough. It's a challenge in its own way in that there's very few kids out there that can handle that. And it's very hard to get into the school because of that. So, you got to be able to do the work, period. It's not like being at a big WCAC school where you're a good football player, you go to that school. Like in Murray, you can be the best football player in the world. If you can't do the academic work, you're not going to get into the school. And because you can do the academic work, you still have to be a well-rounded kid. You have to, bring a lot to the table, not just be a football player. And so once you get in whoever it is that gets into school, then you're left with something that's pretty awesome, which is a kid that's really smart, really intelligent, and capable of handling very complex offense and defensive stuff and retaining information and processing information very quick. So that's a huge benefit of it, whereas the downside would be your depth. Whereas a lot of schools have 20 linemen, and we have 8 kids that play offensive line. That's it. And then those same guys play defensive line. So, and you got freshmen playing varsity who, they spend some time in some JV games, but they dress out for varsity, and they're the scout team players for the varsity practice. And so that's the part that's interesting. I've always said, I think it'd be really easy to go from a school like Sidwell or Murray and coach at a big school with 100 kids, whereas a coach at a school with 100 kids may not even know where to begin at a team with 20 kids. So like you got to kind of really learn to do what you can. And what I always tell people is, look, my whole thing is I never focus on what we don't have and what others do have. I focus on what we do have and figure out how to make it work. And that's my whole approach on it. And that's what I tell the kids. That's what my assistant coaches believe. Like, so what? We don't have a home field. We play at Wilson. You don't need a home field. Some days we get 20 yards of practice on behind the soccer goal while a JV soccer game's going on. All right, well, let's do the best we can with those 20 yards. And, we don't have lines or goalposts or any of that stuff on our practice field. But who cares? You just figure it out and deal with it and go with it. And just that's our job.
And you've done a good job of it this year. One thing before we get into some of the playoff run for you, you win a Mid-Atlantic Athletic Conference title the first time for the school. How proud of a moment was that for you guys to go ahead and go through that run against some pretty tough teams and come out unblemished and with a conference title?
It was just awesome. I told the kids after we beat Flint Hill for a share of the title that I've been here 11 years, and a lot of teams have come really close. so close it'll rip you up. But just double overtime loss about 6 years ago that would have won. And but these guys got it. They did it. But not just did it. They did it in a big way. They went out and beat everybody on our schedule, pretty handily within the league. I think our closest league game was 28 points. That was probably the closest one. So whatever the St. James one was, that was our closest league game score-wise. And that wasn't even, it was over 3 touchdowns. But I think it was just, for the kids, it was a validation of all the hard work they put in for years. And those guys work hard. They really pushed themselves. And that kind of validated it all. And a lot of times in life, you work really hard, and it may not get validated. You could work like crazy on a project for your boss, and your boss might not even tell you good job. So this was special for us in that we worked really hard and validated with something tangible in return, which was a league championship. So that for me was the best part, was these kids being able to take something away and say, look, I won the first league championship in the school, and being able to carry that with the rest of their lives.
That's the head coach of the Murray Frogs, the DCSA Class A champions, Mike Engelberg. Part 1 of my interview with him. We'll hear part 2 coming up later in the show. Well, coming up, we'll head back over to Virginia, where we'll check in with the 6A North champs, the Westfield Bulldogs, as they look for a state championship, their second straight. They got a rematch with Oscar Smith tomorrow. We'll check in with the head coach of the Bulldogs, Kyle Simmons, and the quarterback, Ramon Johnson. That's coming up right after this. You're listening to the Final Drive here on DMVSTREAM.com. Remember, want to hit us up, do it via Twitter, DMVStream, hashtag it with the Final Drive. Again, that's DMVStream, hashtag it with the Final Drive.
Looking for some of the best barbecue in the area? Well, then come on down to Monk's. Monk's Barbecue has all your favorites: delicious pulled pork, tender, moist brisket, and dry rubbed ribs that just fall off the bone, as well as specialty items like pulled chicken, pastrami, and Kansas City burnt ends. Add in delicious sides like Monk's special baked beans, smoked Gouda mac and cheese, vinegar coleslaw, and many more, and you can't get any better. That's Monk's Barbecue in the heart of Loudoun County, online at monksq.com. That's monks and the letter Q.com. And go to their Facebook page to find out more about their live music and drinks. DMVSTREAM.com produces live broadcasts for professional, semi-pro, and amateur sporting events, as well as colleges, universities, high schools, AAU, and youth tournaments in the Mid-Atlantic. With a client list that includes ESPN, The Washington Post, Monumental Sports Network, CBS.com, USAFootball.com, USLacrosse.org, NCAA.com, the National Federation of High School Sports, and Georgetown University, among others, Synthesis Multimedia has emerged as the Mid-Atlantic's top provider of sports multimedia. Contact us today to learn more about streaming your events live.
Are you a fan of high school sports? Does high school sports attract the type of customers you want for your business? If so, then consider advertising here on The Final Drive. The Final Drive on DMVStream.com is a weekly show dedicated to high school football in the District, Maryland, and Virginia. We update scores and talk to the movers and shakers from Friday night's top games, and we preview the big matchups from Saturday's action. So consider being a part of The Final Drive. For more information about advertising on The Final Drive, contact Jeremy Huber at jrh0001@gmail.com. That's jrh0001@gmail.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an all-new season of Top Plays here at allmetsports.com and WashingtonPost.com. I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis. Now, as we've done the past 4 seasons, we're continuing our exciting interactive high school football show that allows you, the coaches, players, parents, and fans, and others, to send in your video submissions for ranking in our Top 10 style weekly show. If you want to see your highlight in this show, well, it's as simple as tweeting your boy. I'm at BJ Koob. You got to remember to hashtag it, All Mets. All right, you can tweet in your Huddle, YouTube, Vimeo, really any video link by Sundays at noon, and we'll consider it for use in the upcoming episode of Top Plays. Now, you got to remember to tune in on Mondays to see if your video made our top 10 at allmetsports.com. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back into the final drive on DMVSTREAM.com. We're just up about an hour into the show. We're planning on going another 30 minutes. Could go longer, could go a little shorter. Depends. We're kind of hanging out, waiting to see if we check in with some folks from the Wise Pumas after their big state championship win tonight, knocking off or really running over Quince Orchard 42-7. Big game for the Pumas as Quince Orchard had some early mistakes, kind of kept them from taking a lead, and then Wise made them pay with some big plays later in the contest. Really good game by Wise, kind of taking a few punches and then sticking around and then ended up going ahead and getting the win. So, again, congratulations to the Wise Pumas as they win their second straight 4A state championship in Maryland. Well, another team looking for a second straight state championship locally. Of course, Damascus did it. Wise did it. The other team trying to do it, the Westfield Bulldogs, as they take on Oscar Smith in the 6A state championship in Virginia tomorrow. Of course, the Bulldogs, a thrilling 3-overtime win last year against Oscar Smith at UVA in Charlottesville. They'll be playing this one down more in Oscar Smith's territory down in Hampton. So a little bit of an evening out, I guess you will, in this two-game set between Oscar Smith and Westfield. The Bulldogs looking for another state championship. We'll see if they're able to get it. Of course, the same guy that led him to the state championship last year, still on the sidelines now. That'd be their longtime coach, Kyle Simmons. Had a chance to catch up with him earlier today to talk about the matchup with Oscar Smith and the Bulldogs' fantastic season. This year's team, obviously, if you're going back to a state championship, it seemed like, unlike last year where there's kind of that clear market delineation, you had the suspensions, the tough early season, getting those guys back integrated. This year, it seemed like things kind of turned a little bit about after that Centerville game where you guys really kind of came out of the gate strong against them. You've kind of been rolling ever since. What was the turning point of this season where you guys kind of got back to playing Westfield football?
Well, to talk about the previous year's suspensions, one of the war cries at the beginning of the year in August was no drama this year. So that's something the kids did a pretty good job of, is not put anything on the football team that was a distraction or unneeded. The turn in the season probably was the Robinson game. We were down with 5 minutes to go by 2 scores. We were able to score a touchdown, then get an onside kick with a minute left in the game and kick about a 48-yard field goal as time expired to win it. And we also had a couple key injuries in that game. Petrillo was still out. And, that was a game that I think the kids looked at and said, hey, we can do this. And then we started getting some people back. We're able to beat Centerville 35-0. And, things started to roll for us then.
And as of late, your offense has been going pretty well. And Ramon Johnson's got back to playing the kind of ball he was playing last year, making big plays in the passing game. Talk a bit about what he's been able to bring to the team, especially later in the season.
Yeah, I'm real happy with Ramon. I think maybe we gave him a little too much at the beginning of this year, which, caused us to sputter a little bit. But we pulled back on the playbook about game 3 or 4. And then just as he grew more comfortable, we started to give him more responsibilities, and I'm real pleased with where he is right now. I think he's matured. I think he's turned into a leader, and I think he's making good decisions. So that's really what has helped our offense to perform the way it's been performing.
Let's get over to that defense, and the quarterback of your defense is Kevin Petrillo. A little under the weather, hoping he's going to be fine for tomorrow. But why is he such a leader of this defense, and why is he just such a good player out there?
Yeah, I would probably say for him, he is a good athlete. I mean, he's going to Georgetown to play lacrosse, but he prepares like no other. The mental part of the game for him, I said in the state championship game interviews that he's a cerebral football player, and that's really what he is. He's a guy who not only uses his ability, but he puts himself in positions based on film work and study that he's done throughout the week.
Coach, you got Oscar Smith again. This is an interesting situation where it's a repeat of last year. Obviously, the teams have changed a little bit, but what can you tell me about what Oscar Smith brings to the table?
I think this year they're better defensively. Certainly, they're tough in the secondary, somewhere where we've been having some success here late. And offensively, I think they've trimmed their playbook a little bit, but they're really good at what they do offensively. I think special teams is an area where I would hope we could win the game. We usually do against most teams, but especially against this team, I think the kicking game is an area that we can flip field position on.
Talking about their offense, Sean Mitchell, very good quarterback for them, and Oscar Smith. What does he possess? What makes him so tough to defend?
Well, I think, first of all, this is his third state championship game, isn't it? Played as a freshman, freshman, junior, and now as a senior. So, just like both teams are going back to the state championship game, that experience for programs is important, but also for a quarterback who's doing it for the third time. He knows what the weight of that game is like, and he knows what it takes to compete at that level. So not only is he a good player, I think he's going to William and Mary. Is that right? So he must be pretty smart too. So he's got a lot of things going for him, and he's got good players around him.
One last one for you, Kyle. This program for a long time, it was kind of, the kicking the door down, kicking the door, something would happen. Then last year, you guys get over the hump in a big way in such a thrilling win over Oscar Smith. Have you felt any difference in how the guys have approached things this year that they do have a lot of these guys at least have played in a state championship game, have gone through the process?
Yeah, I compare this team to last year's team in the sense that I feel that we're in a good spot as far as a team goes. I feel like we're doing it for the right reason. I feel like we're bought in. I feel like we're doing it for one another. I feel like the kids sense the importance of this experience and are really enjoying themselves. So a lot of similarities, I think, for some different reasons, but very similar teams as far as where they are, not only physically, but mentally going into this game.
Good luck tomorrow, Kyle.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate you being here.
Kyle Simmons, the head coach of the Westfield Bulldogs, as they look for another state championship, a second straight, as they take on Oscar Smith in a rematch of last year's contest. Of course, the winning quarterback last year for the Bulldogs, Ramon Johnson, he is back this year. Had a chance to catch up with Ramon earlier today. Well, Ramon, obviously you guys are back, another state championship game again this season. How exciting is it to be back in this spot again?
It feels great. You work really hard throughout the season. We've been out here since August, and when you make it this far, it shows how much hard work you've been putting in throughout the season.
Last year, you kind of were a little bit in and out of the lineup. The coach made the switch late in the season, made you the quarterback, really came through late in the year with some big plays. How did it feel this year, kind of coming in, being more of the established starter as you've gone down the stretch and throughout the season?
When I wasn't at quarterback last season, it was preparing me for, I guess, the moment that I'm in now. And I feel like I've been prepared and I'm ready to go. And my coaches have just they've taught me everything I know, and I think I'm ready to play.
Speaking of your coaches, played for Coach Simmons. Again, everyone seems to love playing for him. What makes him such a good coach?
He emphasizes execution, and that's what we bring out every single day. We make a bond with all these guys. We're all brothers. We're family. When we come out here, it doesn't feel much different than when I go home. I feel like I'm with the same people. These are literally, it feels like my blood. I love these guys, and I would do anything for them. And that's what Coach Simmons brings to this football team. That's what he creates. He creates a bond with you, and it makes you want to be even much closer with everybody else. And yeah.
Going into tomorrow, obviously, there's a lot of feelings when it comes to playing a state championship game. Do you feel like, since you've been in that situation before, maybe the nerves might be a little bit less because you know what you're dealing with?
Yeah, last year I was not gonna lie, pretty nervous going into that game, but now I feel like I'm prepared. I'm ready to go, and I think we're ready to play tomorrow.
I want to get your thoughts, because obviously you're the leader of the offense, but defensively, Kevin Petrillo is your standout linebacker. What's it like going up against a guy like that who's really so skilled when it comes to diagnosing things, and kind of seems to know the other team's playbook like the back of his hand?
Yeah, in practice, I think he really gets me ready to play by the end of the week. He's a great player. Great. He reads you, the quarterback, really well. He knows where to be on every single play, and he's just he's all over the field every play, and I think it gets a quarterback like me ready to play by the end of the week.
Well, I'm sure you're going to be doing a good job tomorrow. You take on Oscar Smith. Good luck tomorrow, Ramon.
Thank you.
Ramon Johnson, the quarterback of the Westfield Bulldogs, as they get ready to take on Oscar Smith tomorrow in the 6A final in Virginia. Interesting tidbit in that game. Oscar Smith played DeMatha in a regular season game. Westfield scrimmages DeMatha every year, so that should be a little interesting thing. That's at Hampton tomorrow, 4:30 start. The 5A final proceeds it at noon as Stonebridge takes on Highland Springs. 4A and 3A finals in Virginia at William & Mary. Salem, who knocked off local Dominion last week, they take on Dinwiddie at 4:30 in the 4A final. Your 3A final, it's Blacksburg and Stanton River. Stanton River, I believe, a 4 seed. Blacksburg a 10 seed. So they really kind of a Cinderella story. Don't see that much in high school football, but Blacksburg is one of those this year. Your 2A and 1A finals down at Salem Stadium. No locals in those. 2A's Richlands versus Appomattox. In 1A, it's Sussex Central taking on Riverheads. We'll have more on the show coming up. Again, everything to talk to a member of the Wise coaching staff about their big win tonight over Quince Orchard in the Maryland 4A state championship game. Also, we'll check in on part 2 of our interview with the head coach of Murray's football squad, Mike Engelberg. Of course, the Frogs winning the DCSAA state championship in Class A. We'll hear the second part of that interview coming up on the show as well. Again, this is The Final Drive. I'm Jeremy Huber. Want to check in with us? Do it via Twitter, DMVStream, hashtag it with The Final Drive. Again, that's DMVStream, hashtag it with The Final Drive.
Looking for some of the best barbecue in the area? Well, then come on down to Monk's. Monk's Barbecue has all your favorites: delicious pulled pork, tender, moist brisket, and dry rubbed ribs that just fall off the bone, as well as specialty items like pulled chicken, pastrami, and Kansas City burnt-ends. Add in delicious sides like Monk's special baked beans, smoked Gouda mac and cheese, vinegar coleslaw, and many more, and you can't get any better. That's Monk's Barbecue in the heart of Loudoun County, online at monksq.com. That's monks and the letter Q.com. And go to their Facebook page to find out more about their live music and drinks. DMVSTREAM.com produces live broadcasts for professional, semi-pro, and amateur sporting events, as well as colleges, universities, high schools, AAU, and youth tournaments in the Mid-Atlantic. With a client list that includes ESPN, The Washington Post, Monumental Sports Network, CBS.com, USAFootball.com, USLacrosse.org, NCAA.com, the National Federation of High School Sports, and Georgetown University, among others, Synthesis Multimedia has emerged as the Mid-Atlantic's top provider of sports multimedia. Contact us today to learn more about streaming your events live.
And right now, we're lucky enough to be joined by the head coach of the victorious Wise Pumas, DeLon Parrish. His guys get the job done again with a big 42-7 win. Coach Parrish, first off, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the victory.
Thank you so much. I'm exhausted right now.
I'm sure you are, Coach. And interestingly enough, in that game tonight, it seemed like Quince Orchard kind of came out of that one, and they had you guys, I'm going to say on the ropes, but they had a few possessions in your territory. Your guys able to cause some fumbles, and really the more disciplined team when it came to playing clean football tonight, and eventually your guys' talent shone through. But were you proud of your team being able to be the cleaner team early in the game when, if they weren't, it kind of could have got out of hand a little bit or could have got themselves in a hole?
Absolutely. We talked about that. We always say the only team that can beat us is us. I thought we did a good job of getting on the ball, forcing turnovers. They did a good job of moving the ball early. Our kids kept fighting. Where I think they broke out of there one time, we was able to run them down, get them back to first and 10, as we call it right here, do it again. We forced the turnovers. Friday to come in and actually the turnovers and to put points on the board. So they did an awesome job with that.
Yeah, most definitely. You guys able to, again, get those turnovers early in the game, kind of keep them out of scoring opportunities and get the win. And Coach, it seemed like really in this contest, it was, again, a story of, your offense with some big plays in this matchup. Again, your quarterback, Jabari Laws, hit a few big touchdown passes. Talk about his performance tonight.
I mean, it was outstanding. It was a team effort, early on. He was able to get us out of some big third downs with his arm. The receiver did a good job of going up for the ball in his cold element. First half, we were able to score 2 touchdowns on the ground, and Jabari took over in the second half. I told him in the halftime, look, we're going to put this thing up, and you're going to do what you've been doing all year long. And if the receiver got excited, the line today was going to protect, and it's a good explosion.
And in the contest tonight, again, kind of look at those early stats. They held you down a little bit in the passing game, at least in the first half. How were you able to kind of, a little more in the rushing game in the first half? How were you guys able to kind of break it out a little bit more in the second half and get what you wanted?
Well, we just talked about opening up more, not just throwing on third downs, trying to throw it on first and second down. Spread the ball around. We have tremendous athletes on the perimeter, a lot of young guys, and get them the ball in space and see what they can do.
And they were able to do it very well tonight. A lot of guys with big performances, like you said, in the running game, in the passing game. Morcell had 2 touchdown catches, I believe. Coach, let's look a little big picture in this one. It's your second straight state championship, your second straight undefeated season. Where does this Wise Pumas program go with so many goals seemingly accomplished in the last 2 years?
Well, every year is a different challenge, We could win another one. That's where you could go. But, it's just a challenge. Getting the kids committed, preparing them for school, college, becoming better men. Always commitment to excellence.
And most definitely, you've been able to go ahead and do that. I guess the other question that we'd have to ask, Coach, and I think we talked about it after your championship game last year, is there any way you guys and Coach Wallach from Damascus can get a game together? Because I feel like you might sell out a stadium if you put your 2 teams together.
Oh, we would love to do that. I'm sure he would love to do that. Two of the best public schools in the state of Maryland, mixing it up, if the schedule would ever allow that, we would be great to do it. I'm sure he would be good to do it. You have to deal with his Montgomery County schedule, things I have to deal with. But I would love to link it up, and I'm sure he would.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people would love to see it, and boy, would it be a fun one again. But it's been a fun 2 years for you guys at Wise this year. DeLon Parrish, head coach of the Wise Pumas. Again, your 4A state champions in Maryland. Coach, thank you so much for taking some time out in what's a really busy night for you to talk to us here on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Again, DeLon Parrish, doing some great things at Wise. Took over that program in 2006, and it was a new program, and really got after it, and eventually made into what it is today. And boy, is it a good program right now, as the Pumas kind of got things humming over in Montgomery County. They are doing some very, very good things when it comes to football. DeLon Parrish, again, doing some great things in 4A as his team wins a second straight state championship via an undefeated season. Can't do much better than he is doing right now as the head coach over at Wise. Well, one more interview to go on the show. We'll jump right into it now. Again, we had a chance earlier in the show to catch part 1 of our interview with the head coach of the Moray Frogs, Mike Engelberg. Let's go ahead and take a listen to part 2 of that interview. Again, Coach Engelberg, his team with a big way to go out this year as they win a MAC championship and then win the DCSA Class A championship. Again, Coach Engelberg, talked to him earlier about his season, a little more about his team's win in the championship game over Theodore Roosevelt, and more. Mike Engelberg, the head coach of the Moray Frogs, here on the Final Drive. Coach, those goals, the league championship, winning a state, going undefeated, did that help you guys guard against complacency, considering the fact that after that opener against St. Paul, pretty much like you said, everything was a blowout afterwards?
Yeah, and it's funny, it's really our guys. If you saw us play, and a reporter made this comment to me last week, and I never really thought about it until he said it. He said, I've never seen a team blow out another team the way you guys do it. It's almost like you don't even realize it's happening, and then you look at the score, and all of a sudden it's a running clock. You don't even realize it happened. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, you know what? He's right. It's our guys score, and they hand the ball to the referee, and they line up for the extra point, or they have a huge interception and they hand the ball to the referee, and before you know it, we're already on the line of scrimmage waiting for the next play. And, that's kind of the way they work. That's the way we work. And we're all about, let's get on the ball and go. We average 70 plays a game on offense. We're just trying to get on the ball and run the next play and not worry about all the other stuff and just go. And I think that kind of mentality is what led to those big wins. And, we had a running clock in 9 of our 11 games, and it's not something we ever set out to have. We always preach, look, we're going to do this the right way. We're going to do it with class. As soon as we get that running clock, we're going to become the slowest moving offense there is. And, we're going to just do everything we can to keep it respectable. And the kids bought into it. They were all about it. But, yeah, when you look back, I didn't even realize those numbers in terms of the amount of points we were winning by and how many we were scoring and giving up until after the season was over and we added it all up. But geez, that was special.
Pretty good stuff. Let's get to that championship game of the DCSA. You win the state title. Obviously, you had a blowout against Kip the week before. You play a Roosevelt team. They were kind of new to the experience as well. Kobe Davis runs the opening kickoff back. If there were any nerves for your guys, did that play kind of eliminate them for you?
Yeah, oh, man. I mean, that you could not have asked for a better way to start that game up because it was a huge crowd. I mean, Wilson was packed, and it definitely felt a little different than all the other games before that game, and just had a different buzz about it. And we're all kind of like, all right, here we go, let's get this going. And we knew all week if we did what we did well, and we really went out there and played the way we had every week, we were going to be fine. But it's easy to know that, but then you go out there and nerves can do crazy things to people, and the guy kicked the ball, it landed on the floor. I mean, he kicked it 96 yards in the air. I'm like, all right, here we go. And next thing you know, Kobe running all over the field, and then he's walking untouched into the end zone, and it was the biggest relief ever because it was like, all right, this is just going to be like all the other games. And then we kicked up. We got a 2-point conversion right off there. We're up 8-0. We kick off to them. They go backwards, and next thing you know, it's 4th and 12. They punt it to us, and 2 plays later, Garrison's running untouched into the end zone from 40-something yards out, and it's 15-0, and there's 11 minutes left. And I turn to my assistants, and I'm like, we're going to be fine. This is just like all the other games, and it really was. I mean, it just picked up from there. I think we got up 39-0 in the first half, and it literally just added up quick.
Yeah, huge game. You mentioned Garrison Burnett, your quarterback, and obviously, such an important part of your team this year. What did he bring to that squad?
He's just so calm and poised. I mean, he really is. He's truly a kid that does not get rattled. He can score a 95-yard touchdown run, and he's literally going to hand the ball to the referee and come to the sideline and maybe give somebody a high five on the way off the field, maybe not. And your team feeds off that. I mean, if your big play home run hitter acts like it should have happened every time he hits a home run, and it's the team feeds off of that. They get it. They realize it. I mean, he never got too high, never got too low, just poised. But man, I mean, he rushed for over 2,200 yards. It's his second year in a row rushing for over 2,000 yards. 27 rushing touchdowns and 19 passing touchdowns. He caught a couple touchdowns, and he just, and he did all that while playing every single snap on defense as a cornerback. So I mean, he is special. He really is. I mean, he's going to have a bright future wherever he decides to go to college. He's going to have a heck of a career.
One last one for you, Coach. You coach Sean Davis, guy played at Maryland, now playing for the Steelers. Everyone kind of, I know, saw the articles about, a guy goes from Murray to the pros. How cool is it to coach a guy like that? And number two, how have you been able to maybe use that to your advantage when you bring kids in now as an example of what could happen if they do the right things?
It's awesome. And I think the best part about it was Sean is he's still Sean. I mean, he really is. I talk to him all the time, and he hasn't changed. He's the same kid. I mean, he really is. He's Sean Davis, the same kid that was a freshman in Murray that was 5'7", 120 pounds. And, he just happens to now be 6'1", 210 and starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But it's just awesome to see. And as a kid, he still is a huge role model for our players right now. I mean, he FaceTimes with our team. And the guys see, like, this is a real guy. He's just like us. He works really, really hard, and the ball bounced his way, and he's living out his dream right now. And I think, Kobe Davis, who's not related to Sean, but is a senior for us. Kobe's going to Wake Forest next year. Kobe Davis we were talking about it in the spring last year, and he was kind of like, what was he like? And I'm like, he's just like you guys. He really was. I mean, just a kid who worked really hard. I think I get a lot of phone calls now from prospective parents of middle school age kids who call me and, they're like, oh, we're interested in your school. And, I know that a lot of that is stemming from the publicity that Sean gets, and people say like, hey, you can go to Murray and still have a chance. But the reality of it is, it doesn't matter where you go to high school in terms of football. If you're good enough and you work hard enough, you can go as far as your ability and your hard work is going to take you. And I mean, Sean has proved that you don't have to go to a football factory to make it to the highest levels. You can go to the best academic school, in my opinion, around, and just work hard, and anything can happen.
Well, a lot of good things happen for your Murray Frogs this year. DCSA champs. Again, Mike Engelberg, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on the big season.
No problem. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Mike Engelberg, head coach of the Murray Frogs, here on the final drive, and that's going to do it for interviews tonight. Let's go ahead, and before we get out of here, we'll run down the schedule, the scheduled games coming up. One's still yet to be played. Again, most of a lot of the championships are in the books, but some of them still yet to go. Over in Maryland, of course, tonight, new state champion, it's actually old state champion, as it was Wise routing Quince Orchard 42-7 in that contest. 14-0 at the half. Quince Orchard had some chances, fumbled inside Wise territory. Wise took advantage of the fact that Quince couldn't get up on them, and then kind of blew it open with their playmakers in the second half. John Oliver had 2 touchdown runs for Wise in that one. As Jabari Laws had 4 touchdown passes in the contest, 2 of those going to receiver Dimitri Morcell. So a big night for Laws, big night for Oliver, as it was a big night for Wise. They win their second straight state championship, 42-7 against Quince Orchard in 4A in Maryland. 3A, Damascus beat Franklin last night, 14-12, as the Swarman Hornets forced 8 turnovers, 3 of those Colby Starheim interceptions. It's the 28th straight win for Damascus, also 28 straight wins for Wise. They ran for just 39 yards, played with their backup quarterback, John Allen Ferguson. His starter, Wade Ripien, had sat with a freak ankle injury sustained when he was changing a tire on his car earlier this week. It's the second straight state championship for Damascus as well. They avenged their title game loss to Franklin that came back in 2014. 2 more Maryland state championship games tomorrow, neither involving a local school per se. Your 1A final, Havre de Grace versus Fort Hill, in a 3:30 start. Then in 2A, it's Elkton and Walkersville at 7 p.m. Again, both those games, just like the previous 2 games, at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis. In Virginia, it's at Hampton tomorrow, the 2 local teams. In 6A, it's Westfield taking on Oscar Smith in a 4:30 start. That's preceded by the 5A final as local Stonebridge takes on Highland Springs. Both those games are rematches of last year's state championships. Westfield beat Oscar Smith last year in triple overtime, while Stonebridge fell to Highland Springs in their contest. Again, those are at Hampton University tomorrow. Also tomorrow, the 4A and 3A finals at William & Mary. In 4A, it's Salem of Salem taking on Dinwiddie at 4:30. Salem, of course, beat local Dominion last week in the state semifinals. 3A, it's Blacksburg versus Stanton River at 12 noon. Salem Stadium hosts your 2A and 1A finals. Richlands versus Appomattox, your 2A final. Then in 1A, it's Riverheads and Sussex Central. So big day of football tomorrow as it continues. Again, but that's going to wrap it up for us here on the final drive for the year. Again, it's our 3rd year of this show. And boy, has it been a good one. There are a lot of fun weeks doing this show, getting to talk to as I say, the movers and shakers in the area, high school football. And of course, we did it tonight with state champion coaches, kind of getting into all the different stories. Just a fun show to do. It's so great. Got to thank BJ Kubaroulis for letting me come on and do this under the DMV Stream banner. Again, lots of folks to thank for joining us tonight. Got to thank DeLon Parrish joining us, the Wise head coach after a state championship. I believe he was on the bus. So again, thank you so much to Coach Parrish for joining us after the contest. Also, some other state champions or folks hoping they're going to be state champions tomorrow. Damascus head coach Eric Wallach joined us on the show to talk about his team's 3A state championship win. Westfield head coach Kyle Simmons and his quarterback Ramon Johnson previewing their game tomorrow against Oscar Smith. Stonebridge defensive coordinator RJ Windows and running back Josh Brees talking about their matchup with Highland Springs tomorrow in the 5A championship in Virginia. Also, thanks to Friendship Collegiate Coach Mike Hunter and Murray head coach Mike Engelberg, your 2 DCSAA champions. Again, a fun show to cap off another fun season here on the final drive. Again, make sure you tune into all the different coverage we have on DMV Stream. You may see me on some of the games we do there, as well as the Prep Zone, our weekly high school football show. So, again, tune us in. Love to see you. And, again, hit us up on DMV Stream, our Twitter account. Again, it's DMV Stream. So, for another year, I'm Jeremy Huber, and this has been the final drive here on DMVStream.com.